Most of us use these mobile phones on a daily basis. It's part of our social fabric. But in the developing world, in Africa, parts of Asia, they are causing a communication revolution, changing completely how people communicate with each other and changing the idea of the public sphere in the developing world. I'm here with Ken Banks, a leading pioneer in the provision of mobile technology in the developing world, to find out more. Ken, welcome. The archetypal image of technology in Africa is the Maasai warrior with that high-tech phone. But obviously there is a lot going on in terms of mobile technology in Africa and the rest of the developing world. What exactly is happening?
So in the work that I do, working with non-profit organisations, there's clearly over the last couple of decades or more been a lot of non-profit activity in health, agriculture, human rights, many areas. And cell phones are now starting to appear in these places for the first time, and non-profits are starting to look at these cell phones, and they're wondering how they can use them to make their work more efficient, more streamlined, quicker, better, and so on. So what we're finding is cell phones are being applied to a whole range of non-profit activities, providing market prices to farmers through their phones, providing information, health lines, allowing people to report problems with elections, any fraud that they see, allowing people to report when drugs are out of stock at their clinics, allowing people to report during election monitoring and human rights abuses, and a whole range of activities. So what we're finding is that non-profits are using phones in almost every area of non-profit activity you can imagine, and it's really only happened in the last 3 or 4 years to any kind of scale. And even though there's a lot going on and it's pretty exciting, we're still really only at the beginning, so it's a pretty good time.
Well, what impact is this mobile technology having on the public sphere in Africa, the actual people using this technology?
For many people, their first ever phone call will be on a mobile phone. For many people now as well, their first experience of the internet will be on a cell phone. I mean, you have to remember that in many of these countries, and particularly the rural areas in developing countries, and look at the African continent more generally, landline infrastructure is quite poorly dispersed, it's badly maintained. Very few people would ever be able to get a landline phone linked to their house. They wouldn't be able to get an account because they wouldn't have a bank account to pay the bills, they wouldn't have an address maybe in some cases. So mobile technology is often called a leapfrogging technology because it's really jumped above all of that. So people are excited because many, for the first time, can actually start to communicate. They've never had anything before. For us, cell phones complement our broadband at home, our landline, all the other ways we can get information. But for many rural people and urban people, in also many cases, it's their first opportunity to ever call a relative conveniently, or to get information directly to their palm. And that's where most of the excitement's been.
Outside of mobile technology, what about the internet itself? How is this developing in places like Africa and Asia?
Well, there's a whole load of technical challenges around internet delivery through handsets, and there are many people writing reports and doing research and trying to figure out the best ways of doing it. A couple of examples: some of the phones that people are using, particularly the cheaper low-end phones, don't have internet access anyway. So if you buy a $15, $20 phone in, say, Nairobi, it probably hasn't got any kind of browser or any way of surfing the web. Also, the networks don't always support internet browsing either. They're making a lot of money off text messaging and off of voice. There's not always enough content or local relevant content for people to actually get onto if they could browse the web, so there's not always the incentive for them to do it. And also costs. People don't really have a lot of money to spend and can't simply idly surf around the web on the chance of finding something interesting.
You run Frontline SMS, one of the major enablers of mobile technology in the developing world. What exactly is that?
So it's a piece of software which turns a laptop computer and a cell phone and a cable into a two-way group messaging center. So if you're a non-profit, say for example, working in an agricultural project in rural northern Uganda, and you're working with several hundred farmers, and you're starting to experiment with SMS, providing market prices and providing other information to those farmers, by setting up Frontline SMS on a laptop, you can add all their numbers into a database, and you can then blast them all a text message. You can then also ask them to reply, so you could ask them questions, you could run surveys. Those hundreds of farmers could then text back into the software, and you could sort the answers by type, you can export them to a spreadsheet. So in many cases it simplifies and makes the whole process of communicating with large numbers of people In places where there's no internet, so we can't use any of the fancy tools that we maybe think about here, there's no Google Docs and other kind of online stuff. It really streamlines and opens up the potential for that to grassroots non-profits who are working in areas where more smart and complex technologies just don't work.
Ken, thank you very much.
Thank you.